Hi everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jill, otherwise known as the Enlightened Target, and this channel is devoted to narcissistic abuse awareness and recovery, parental alienation, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and anything and everything associated with those three main topics. Today we're going to dive into the topic of things that toxic and narcissistic people do when you try to establish boundaries. Boundaries are critical to everyone's health and happiness, and they are even more important when you're dealing with a toxic or a narcissistic person. However, toxic people hate boundaries, and they typically are going to have an adverse reaction to yours. So today we're talking about what you can expect when you establish boundaries with toxic people or family members. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I would like to invite you to please subscribe and hit that notification bell because I put out new videos every week. Also, if you are interested in getting in touch with an online therapist, I have a link in the description to do that. I'm now partnering with BetterHelp. So if you would like to get in touch with a licensed online therapist, there's a link to do that. Or if you are interested in private narcissistic abuse recovery coaching with me, please visit my website or send me an email. Both are linked in the description below. So today we're talking about the top 10 things you can expect when you establish boundaries with a narcissistic or a toxic person. As I mentioned earlier, narcissists hate boundaries with a passion. So if you're establishing boundaries with a toxic person in your life, here are some likely manipulation tactics you will be facing. Please note, you have to stay strong when you're doing this. Don't let them manipulate you into disregarding your boundaries, because the reality is no one has a problem with anyone else's boundaries unless they are personally benefiting from you not having any. Everyone, including you, has a God-given right to establish boundaries in their lives. Other people don't have to like them, but they do have to honor them. Number one, the toxic or narcissistic person is very likely to try and guilt trip you for establishing boundaries. So the narcissist might say something like, "How could you? How could you be so cruel? I don't deserve this. I'm your mother or your sister. You're doing this because you enjoy hurting me. Normal people who love each other would never implement rules to be a part of each other's life. You're doing this out of spite." Or they might say, "Why are you wanting to hurt me?" However they say it, but you can nearly always count on a huge guilt trip when you implement new boundaries with a toxic person. Number two, you likely will face the toxic person trying to shame you for establishing boundaries. So they might say something like, "I have never seen a loving son do this to his own father. After all I've done for you, and this is the thanks I get. What kind of a son are you?" Or they might say, "You're a horrible daughter who only thinks about herself. A good and loving daughter would never do something so despicable to her own mother. How could you?" Shame is a very powerful deterrent, and no one knows this more than the narcissist. They know if they can make you feel bad about who you are as a person for, God forbid, wanting some guidelines as to what is and what isn't acceptable for your life, then they have a very good chance of getting you to disregard these new boundaries you're trying to establish. Don't fall for it. Don't give in, and see this maneuver for exactly what it is, a manipulation and abuse tactic. Number three, you might be met with some good old blame shifting. Narcissists are notorious for shifting blame and accountability for things they are guilty of doing. So for example, now all of a sudden, it's not their fault they have overstepped your boundaries, but it's your fault for causing them to do that. If you hadn't done XYZ, then they would have never done whatever provoked you to want to establish these boundaries in the first place. It's no longer they who are responsible, but it's actually you who is responsible, and they were simply having a normal reaction to something you did wrong or unfair. They are going to try and confuse you and shift the cause of their behavior onto you. They aren't responsible for not respecting your boundaries. You are responsible for doing something to make them disrespect your boundaries. And if you have been subjected to narcissistic abuse for years and years, this is an incredibly successful manipulation tactic. All narcissists utilize blame shifting to their advantage. So do not take the bait. Number 4, you may very well be met with anger or even narcissistic rage. Narcissists believe that they are entitled to treat people any way they choose, and if you don't like it, well, that's just too bad. Deal with it. Not to mention that just the fact that you tried to approach a topic that the narcissist doesn't like, that in and of itself can produce a narcissistic injury. And when they get a narcissistic injury, that has to be accommodated and equalized. And the most common way that narcissists emotionally regulate themselves after a narcissistic injury is with narcissistic rage. Nothing like scaring you to death for even thinking about establishing boundaries with them. And the reality is that rage has proven to be a very, very effective and successful tool for the narcissist to regain full control of other people. So don't be surprised if your new boundaries are met with rage. Number 5, you could very well be met with a huge dose of the silent treatment. We all know narcissists love to punish unruly victims with a ton of silence. The reality is that narcissists will likely view you initiating boundaries with them as a crime that deserves to be punished. And nothing gets the message across that you have done something terrible as the silent treatment. And narcissists are extremely competitive. They want to win at all costs. That's the most important thing to a narcissist. So typically they can go for agonizingly long periods of time giving you the silent treatment. It's a very effective tool that they have no problems using in order to get what they want and gain control of the situation. So don't fall for it and continue on. Enjoy the break, but don't give in to the silent treatment. Number 6, the narcissist may send the flying monkeys to coerce, to badger, to guilt, or to shame you into abandoning these new boundaries. We all know narcissists always have a flock of flying monkeys, and they have no issues sending them out to add some added pressure to get you in line with their wishes and desires. So if you're trying to implement boundaries with a narcissist, be prepared for oncoming flying monkeys. They're going to try and influence you to neglect and or abandon your boundaries. Number 7, this is a favorite of the narcissist to use when you try and establish boundaries, and that is to just ignore them completely. Many times they will listen to your boundaries, hearing them loud and clear, and then just carry on as if you never ever had that conversation. I've had this happen to me time and time again with narcissists. You explain things to them, they seem to understand, and then the next day they are doing the very thing that you told them not to, and they pretend like the conversation never happened. It is beyond frustrating and really so disrespectful. Number 8, they may just refuse them or demand that you will not be doing this. Narcissists believe they are entitled to behave any way they choose, on top of believing they are the one and only person who has the authority to tell people what they can and cannot do. So the narcissist might just tell you, no, that's not happening, and you're going to do exactly as they say, and that's that. If this happens, you have got to stay strong and stick to your guns. Don't let them bully you into submission. Number 9, The narcissist may try to punish you for even daring to suggest that they have rules they must adhere to with a nasty smear campaign. They might tell you that other people that you're being cruel or that you're selfish and ungrateful. The narcissist's priority is to keep full control and win. Nothing is more important to a narcissist than winning. And when all else fails, they have no problems smearing you to other people behind your back as punishment. Number 10, sometimes we call coming out of narcissistic abuse coming out of the fog, which stands for fear, obligation, and guilt. Those three are standard manipulation and control tactics that all narcissists use on people. So just as an overall umbrella, when you establish boundaries with a narcissist, you can count on being met with abuse and manipulation tactics that are an attempt to scare you, fear, shame you because they want you to feel obligated to them, not to yourself, obligation, and tons of guilt trips. Fog, fear, obligation, and guilt. Those you can count on encountering when you try to establish boundaries with a toxic or narcissistic person. In closing, boundaries are a necessity for empaths because they not only serve to keep ill-intended people out, but also keep us in. People pleasers typically have extremely weak boundaries or just don't have them at all. And when we don't know exactly what our boundaries are in the 5 areas of life, which are emotional, mental, physical, time and energy, and material, we are also unaware that we may very well be giving too much, putting too much time and effort into something that isn't our problem or issue. So boundaries for people like us serve to keep toxic people at a safe distance, but to also keep us in and keep our elevated, empathetic, and compassionate personality and character traits wrangled in and under control. Okay, that's going to do it for today's video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel. Also, follow me on Facebook and Instagram. The links are in the description below. Thanks for watching, everyone.